Welcome to Devakshar. Namaskar. Science and religion. Are they similar or are they parallels? Or do they have dissimilarities? Pravrajika Divyanandaprana Mataji will discuss this in this Sunday class lecture held at Ramakrishna Sharda Mission, House Khas, New Delhi.
Science and religion, an enormous topic. There's a lot of things we can discuss about it. But I'm going to focus only on three parallels between science and religion. Three parallels. Because, see, I don't want to go into the places where the two are differing. And there are a whole lot of places where the two are different. I don't want to go into the different methodologies. They are quite known to us. But there are certain points where there are parallels. So only those things, let's study the positive things. And if we can get deep enough into these parallels, we open up new vistas of thinking. And I'm bringing these two together because you see the relationship between them has not been very laudable, as you know. Mainly because of certain factors. The thing is, you see, science has come out of philosophy, Western philosophy. And Western philosophy is based on a certain principle. You must have heard of it, Cartesian dualism. Mind and matter are two different things. Subject and object are two different things. They can never unite. And Descartes' famous principles. And as a result, if you have to study something, it must be purely objective. Otherwise, it can't be true. This is the basic premise of science. Objectivity. If something has a subjective element, well, your thinking, you has got mixed up with it. And so it can't be really true. This is the basic understanding of Cartesian dualism. So there's a basic dualism mode, a dual mode through which we can do real science. Now, this is where the basic thing differs, you see, because Cartesian dualism is one way of thinking. Subject and object are different, tell me. Are they different in your experience? If I take a rigid framework like this, yes, the two are different, and if there is some kind of a mixing between the two, I will never have valid knowledge, valid truth. In your own everyday experience, now see, I'm looking at this table. I don't want to falsify any principle or theory. That's not my purpose. I told you we are only going to dwell on the places where these two unite, science and religion. But I'm telling you, it's important for us to know why there are certain places where they don't unite. And so why it is all the more important for us to insist on those facts, those principles where they unite. Now, Cartesian dualism is a certain principle which you arrive at as a result of thinking. Your own mode of experience, I'm talking of experiential reality. It is not the whole of, it is not available to the entire purview of your thinking. When you experience something, you can experience it even without thought. Now, Cartesian dualism, I told you, is based on a certain mode of thinking. Whenever you experience something, a subject is experiencing an object, isn't it? Now, you have a science of the object. You have a science of the way of knowing the object, the methodology of knowing. You have no science about the subject. But please remember, the subject is experiencing the object. So unless we have a science of the subject, your knowledge will not be complete. Isn't this quite obvious? We don't need a Vedantic theory to tell us this. This is pretty obvious. If there was only the object and no question of study, well, Cartesian dualism should function. Since a subject, a living entity is studying either a living or a non-living object, it is important for us to take everything about the knowledge into concern, isn't it? Now, this is where Vedanta intrinsically differs from these basic principles of science. Vedanta's ultimate conclusion will be subject and object are intermixed. There is nothing called objective knowledge. The subject contributes to every aspect of knowledge. But before we go to that extreme understanding, at least this much we should know, without the knowledge of the subject, our knowledge of the object will not be complete. This much conviction we should have. Then what we will do, we will learn to apply Cartesian dualism where it was meant to be applied. It can be applied to the world of matter. It can't be applied to life and consciousness. Because you see, now if I want to study this table, what is the method I am going to use to study it? It is matter. So I break down this table. This is what is called reductionism in science. I break it down to its atomic level and I try to find out what are the things involved. What is the nature of this? It is wood. What is wood? It is chitin and cellulose. What is cellulose? It is CHON atoms in different formulations. What are CHON atoms? Again, protons, specific protons, neutrons, electrons, subatomic particles. So this is how I will proceed in my understanding of wood. But if I want to know who you are, what will I do? Will I dissect you? Will I dissect a living entity in order to find out what you are? Any piece of life, not just a human being, a leaf of a tree, a bird. How will you know what a bird is? What is the experience of being a bird? What a leaf is? How does it, you see, tap this, the photosynthesis of the plant? How does it provide energy for its chemical factories as if it was an intelligent being tapping solar energy, making it course through its system and finally yielding chemical energy, food for itself? Without intelligence behind and look at the designing involved, a simple leaf is enough proof of the existence of God, if you ask me. Because it is so intricate, so perfect, it's a marvel, a miniature marvel of creation. But if I take only this reductionist method, cutting down the leaf to study what it is made of, at the most what will you get? You will get its structural components. Will you know its life? The experience of the leaf, the life that the leaf exudes, the experience of being human, it doesn't, you cannot analyze it by cutting down the thing. So this methodology of science primarily applies to non-living living things, matter. You cannot apply it actually to life forms and forms which have consciousness. This basic fallacy we must understand because we don't understand it. You see, biology is life sciences. But even biology it comes as mainstream science, but you don't posit this fact at all. That if this is the only way of science, of knowing something, that you cut it down to its subatomic particles, we know nothing about life and consciousness. And we will know nothing about augmenting life and consciousness, which is what human life is about. The full tapping our entire potential, finding out the nature of our true being, remaining unchanging despite all the changing presence of life. How will this be made possible unless you study life in itself? Studying matter, there's a methodology. Studying life, there's another methodology, which we have to understand. The basic differences we have to understand. Another thing is, you see, in science, yes, we have harnessed science almost in its entirety into what we call technology. Isn't it? The relevance of science, the importance of science is in what it gives us. It has eased our life. It has made things comfortable. Now, that should not be the criteria for truth, that it eases my life. Isn't it? When philosophy initially began, philosophy, the purpose of philosophy is to know the truth. Science arose from Western philosophy. But somewhere it compromised with truth because we are investing almost all of our science, our scientific heritage, our scientific thinking and energies and findings into purely technological purposes. How to improve the quality of human life? By that you know what we usually mean? How to improve the experience given to us by the five senses. How to have better things for our eyes, better things for our ears, better things to taste, better things to touch, and how more often we can have this enhancing our experience of life, this is what we mean by it. Now look at this aspect a little closely. Can you enhance your experience of life only by increasing the data available to your senses? Can you do it? Is that called enhancement? If I have a lot more food to eat, a lot more tasty things around me, does that enhance my experience of life? Tell me. It enhances the experience of my taste buds. But the experience of appeasing your hunger remains the same. Catch this point. No matter what passes through your tongue, it's a momentary experience of pleasure. The actual joy of eating comes by the appeasement of your hunger. So you see, the senses are gateways to an experience of happiness, of contentment, of joy, which is what you are actually aiming at. But if you invest your entire science into the appeasement of the five senses, will you be doing justice to the purpose of science? That is why I say there is no substitute to pure science. Knowledge has to be pursued and researched into for its own sake, whatever it leads to. If you have a vested interest in the middle, you will be compromising truth. Isn't this true? But we have invested almost all of our scientific brains and theories and everything into technology. This is another point where science and religion differ. Religion has not made this compromise as yet. At least it will never make it, because the nature of spiritual experience prevents you from doing this. It transcends the senses. So you will not restrict yourself just to sense experience. So these are the cases where there are very huge chasms, you can see, between science and religion. The two can never unite. How can there be unity? When Swamiji is saying there is unity, what he means to say is, at the heart of the thing, at its very purpose, its initial purpose, there is unity. And in its culmination, it will be finding many things which are similar. But that doesn't mean, because I'm telling you, we have compromised the initial purpose. So there is no unity, and there will not be unity in this manner, if we proceed in this manner. But there are certain parallels that you can see. There are certain parallels. If you just glibly say that, oh, they are the same, you are vulgarizing those aspects of science and philosophy which should not be done. They are meant for different purposes. Let us take it like this. Science is meant to improve our material condition. And it is a very respectable proposition, isn't it? We are passing through a life, and material life is the face of it. So it will help you improve that. So it's a very respectable proposition which we should all accept. But your experience of life is not directly proportional to the enhancement of your senses, experience of your senses. This is something I want you to understand. Once you understand this, you will see clearly you need some other form of science in order to complement what normal science does not give you. Our experience of life depends upon our awareness, not just by what we take into the senses. As our intellect develops, as our age develops, you will understand that the experiences given to you by the senses are in fact limiting. Beyond a certain measure, they don't give you happiness. And if you remain within that rut, you are actually restricting life and its purpose. You want to break through. This is the very nature of the human intellect. It cannot remain satisfied at the sensual level, sensory level. So comes the question that what do we take up? How do we understand human life? This is where you see religions, the great religions in the world will help you, because they are very basic premises. Sense life is very limited. We need to go beyond it for satisfaction and fulfillment. And there are certain principles which they will tell you which correlate, or you can say are in conformity with scientific principles. Now this much we will study in today's class. What are these principles? First is, you see, causality. I don't know how many of you have pondered over causality, especially people in science. you must think deeply about it. You see, for anything, if you ask the cause of that thing, you are entering into the science of it. If you never ponder about the causes of effects, you will never come to any thorough knowledge of the effect itself. I will explain everything only through examples. You see, basic causality in science. Suppose now we know there was a Big Bang because science tells us there was a Big Bang and then that's how creation came about. Now there must be a cause to the Big Bang, isn't it? For anything, even a simple tree, you're watching this tree, there was a cause to that. The seed was the cause of that tree. So whenever you go to the cause of something, what do you arrive at? You arrive at what is the definition of a cause? It is the antecedent of the effect. The effect is the precedent of the cause. Because it is the antecedent of the effect, a cause will give you a great insight into the effect. If you have not asked causal questions, you will never know the nature of the effect. Now, science started with causality because, as you know, how did science develop? When Newton saw the apple falling, he asked, how come it falls down? Why did it go up? Anything you watch in nature, there will always be a cause to it. Everything has a cause. Now, you see, this basic philosophy of trying to find a cause behind an effect is the source factor for both science and religion. This is where they are in common. You know, even religion started this way. There is this beautiful diversified world full of multiplicity, so many things. There must have been a cause because it's an intelligent plan. I told you, you take up even a single leaf or the petal of a flower or the feather of a bird. There's an intricate design. It shows a level of intelligence. You know how the feather of a bird is actually, if you look at it under an electron microscope, you will see there are velcro-like mechanisms which hold it in place. And it is endowed with so much of strength. The feather of a bird, it is actually responsible for the flight of the bird and holding things in place. The bones of the birds are hollow, but the feathers are so made that it keeps it in flight easily. Now you see this level of engineering. Doesn't it mean there is intelligence behind anything you take up? Not even a living entity. You take up any material object even. You go to the heart of it. You will see there is an intelligence working which has designed it for a particular purpose. Take up the human cell. You must have heard of the DNA structure of the human cell. Look closely at the DNA. It's a whole enormous coded information about how that entity is going to function. What its structure should be for that kind of function to come about. Everything is encoded in the DNA. The level of encoding is enormous. And in the form of what? Just 4 compounds in different permutations and combinations. So you see, enormous intelligence is at work at a level which we do not understand. You call it a subconscious level or an unconscious level, but any piece of life will reveal this to you. Any piece of matter will reveal this to you. That if there is a created something, there must be a creator. If there's a design, there must be a designer. If there's a piece of architecture, there must be an architect. You cannot doubt this. Because you know, even in information systems, those of you who have studied information technology, you know in information systems, it is possible to create information only from intelligence. Otherwise, you cannot create information. So, anything which shows design and intelligence, there must have been an intelligent creator. Now, this is encoded in the form of a logic in our Vedanta. It is called Karya Karana Ananyatva Nyaya. You see, I told you science arose from Western philosophy and our understanding, our science arose from Eastern philosophy and especially Yoga Vedanta. This Karya Karana Ananyatva Nyaya, it's a form of logic which comes in our Vedantas. You know, Vedantas had to be studied before the study of the Vedanta. There are some forms of logic which you have to understand in order to understand Vedanta. So this is one essential axiom of that logic, that Karya Karana Ananyatvata, which means the cause and the effect are not different. Now, there are three sub-axioms in this. You see, whenever there is an effect, there must be a cause. The cause is non-different from the effect. If you want to change or manipulate the effect, you must change the cause. These are the three sub-axioms of Karya and Ananatva. Now, you apply this to anything. In fact, this is how they have posited the existence of God in Vedanta. The existence of an all-knowing, intelligent, unchanging principle, which has made the creation of life possible, the manifestation of life possible. How do they say Brahman is the creator? You see, they don't just give a solid logical pattern of thinking. They will say, how is it that the universe has come to manifestation? It is because of Karya Karana Ananyatita. The very fact of diversity shows it's an effect. So there must be a cause. Now, what is that cause? Shankaracharya gives very beautiful passages here. He says, the effect is visible, but the cause is not visible in this case. But the cause must be present because it is an intelligent design. So there must be an intelligent cause. It's an efficient design, so there must be an efficient cause. It's a material design, so there must be a material cause. And that is why Brahman is all these. He is the material cause of the universe, he is the efficient cause of the universe, he is the designer of the universe. Because of Karya Karana Ananyatvata, there must be a cause to this manifestation of life. And then, how do they proceed with this? You see, suppose now he takes the example which Shankaracharya takes is that of a pot. If a pot has been created, obviously, it has been created from raw material clay. But a potter must be there to create the pot. No? How does the pot come into it? Just clay doesn't become a pot? No. An intelligent entity is required to create a pot. So also, if there is such a magnificent level of intelligence in the creation, can it come about by itself? It means there's an intelligent creator behind it. And the pot was an idea in the mind of the potter first, isn't it? So the world must have been an idea in the mind of the creator. So he is omniscient. You see, it's all logic. How do they posit the omniscience of Brahman? The omniscience of God? What will you say? You can only say he is omniscient. He knows his creation. He is capable of creating the pot. The potter is capable of creating the pot. So also the creator is capable of creating this. So he is omnipotent. And the pot is nothing but an extension of the potter's mind, isn't it? So also the creation is an extension of the creator's mind. So he is omnipresent. It's all logical. In fact, if you do not posit an intelligent entity behind creation, you are being illogical. You are being irrational. You are actually violating causality. The projection, actually Srishti means projection. It doesn't mean creation. It's a projection. You see, there's a difference between the two terms. Creation is when you bring out something out of something else. Projection is just a projection, that's all. And Srishti is actually a projection of, you can say, the power of God or whatever. You see, when we use the word God, when Hindus use the word God, there's an entire spectrum of thinking. You may mean the God of Advaita Vedanta, you may even mean Krishna and Ganesha and any one of these deities. So usually what is meant in the Upanishads is Brahman, which we were meditating upon, consciousness manifest life. Now this is a very scientific way of looking at it. Because you see, you are not getting into any form of any mode. You are not getting into dual mode, or you are not positing a trinity. You are just positing a principle first. If there is an intelligent design, there is an intelligent designer. That's all you are saying. So, causality is one factor where both these are in agreement. Now, there are a number of things which I can tell you. On causality itself, we can have a number of classes. Because I'm telling you, causality goes very deep into the heart of creation. For any effect, there is a cause. And the way the science tracks that cause and the way Vedanta tracks that cause, the two are slightly different, but both of them are going behind causes. Now, science uses a different method. In fact, the kind of reasoning used by science is, you may be well aware of it, it is deductionist. It deduces laws from available sensory data. It deduces. But in religion, in Vedanta especially, the reasoning is entirely, it's called syllogistic inference, inferential reasoning. Which means what? You are drawing inferences from an experience which may not be just sensory. The common example given is, suppose you are in Bangla and you saw smoke. Doesn't it indicate fire somewhere? Now you do the inference of fire from the perception of smoke. In the whole of Vedanta, they are constantly drawing inferences, and syllogistic inference means there's an a priori experience. You have experienced smoke, so you conclude fire. So Vedanta works like this. This is a usual methodology of reasoning in Vedanta. It is constantly drawing inferences from a priori perceptions, which are not necessarily sensory. Now this may appear too much for you, isn't it? Because the entire science is based on pratyaksha praman. What I see is true. But many times I have given you examples what is not true also you see. Isn't it? Your own experience says that. Now Vedanta will tell you what you see is not true. What you see is heavily mediated knowledge. You see, basic differences are there. That's why I never say science and religion are the same, or they unite. I never use such language because I know they don't. When Vivekananda is saying it, he is talking from a very high generalized point. The perception of samadhi, from that point you can say everything is one, but otherwise they are not one anyway. And what they are trying to tell us here is when they talk of unity, see, I'm bringing a whole lot of ideas together actually, which is not the right thing to do. What I'm trying to tell you is causality itself, in one factor you can draw enormous frameworks of understanding both in science and Vedanta. So I will just give you the other two factors also. So what I'm trying to do is,
could you explain that a little more? That when you say that science goes on the basis of deduction,
yeah,
and Vedanta goes on the basis of inference. As far as inference is concerned, you did not give an example of that. If you could give something of that sort, it would be helpful.
no, you see, everything drawn from Vedanta is based on inference. Like for example, the very way they concept Brahman or Atman or Prakriti, they will say because of this level of intelligence has got manifested because there is this level of intelligence which must have created it. Now what are they trying to do here? They are trying to draw inferences from already perceived facts. They are not using a deductionistic logic. They are not deducing something. In science, entirely you are going to do deduction. But if you actually study the laws of science, you know the fundamental realities of science are non-deducible. If I tell you the speed of light, you know the speed of light is a constant. Is it a constant? Can anything other than God be a constant? Go dive deep if you can do it even on Google on the speed of light and you will see it is not a constant. It is a relative constant. Compared to other things which are in motion, it is a constant. They are in such terrible motion that this is relatively constant. But there are no absolute constants. There is no absolute time, there is no absolute space. Your causality also collapses at a certain point. If you have studied quantum physics, it will come finally to this. That is why Vivekananda said this perceptible universe you are seeing through the prism of time, space and causation. You are seeing it through an already corroded prism. And you are saying that you are interpreting reality. It is nothing but the absolute seen through the prism of time, space and causation in this universe. If you understood this prism well, you will understand the nature of this apparent reality. But if you don't understand, if you don't acknowledge the presence of this prism, and if you give it the credit of absoluteness, what you are perceiving, you will falter. The knowledge will not be true. Now you see, this is a very generalized idea which Swamiji gives, because he was a man of samadhi, a mind which touches that state, it understands things just like that. But we need a number of building blocks to go there. You know, if you just say this, see, I have worked with scientific communities, and I know if you just say this like this to them, they will say, oh, we don't take it. The scientific community will not accept this because it is too huge a generalization for them. We have to first create the building blocks. The building blocks lies in this. You must analyze the prism first, because if you are interpreting life through it. Now, if you don't give reality to the mind itself, you know, the prism is the mind, which has time, space, and causation inbuilt in it. If you don't give reality to that, and science does not give reality to mind, I don't know if you know that. Brain is real because you can see it. Mind is an epiphenomenon of the brain. Now, if this is our understanding, if you don't even give reality to something which you want to study, how will you know how it is working? That is where we are faltering in science. You understand? If you give only something which you can objectively perceive, the title of reality, I think that is a very unscientific way of doing science. Isn't it? Think for yourself. You don't have to, if I talk like this to a scientific, I don't talk like this to the scientific community, but if I do, they will say, oh, because you are wearing Geva, this is the only way you people can think. There's a strong dogma even about science. You are recording this talk, but don't put it out, please. Because I'm telling you, this is how the nature of things are. Science is very dogmatic. Only it will not acknowledge that, because the basic premises upon which we have built the superstructures of science have yielded so much to us. We are not prepared to acknowledge this compromise which is being done in the middle. We are not prepared to. Consciousness studies is making it very clear that our awareness decides our experience of life. But the problem is, for it to come to solutions, it is not able to do that. You know, the basic problem, this is the second point, causality was the first point, this is the second point which you mentioned, which I want to tell you. This is where science and religion have some things in common, and that is human consciousness. What makes my awareness of life? You see, I put a question in that, I don't know how many of you attended that seminar in IIT. I put a question there, what converts perception into experience? Tell me. A video camera also is perceiving images, recording images. It has a memory bank. It doesn't experience the image. You also perceive and you record and you have a memory bank and you experience. What is the difference between you and the camera? Consciousness. You see? You are a conscious entity. Your consciousness makes the experience of life possible. Your awareness is invested in your experience of life. Now, without knowing that awareness, how will you enhance your experience of life? That's what I'm doing. You see, just bombarding more sensory input does not enhance your experience of life. A change in your awareness, deepening your awareness, actually enhances your experience. Now, this simple truth we do not understand because of the scientific method, because of the scientific dogma. You understand? In science, advancement means what? Means more sensory input, greater sensory input. You cannot advance that way. This is the simple fact of life. A living system does not advance that way. That is why the entire theory of evolution, it actually applies only to the animal level, the material level and animal level, not to the human level. In our case, evolution does not mean how many things you gather, how many more things you have to experience through the senses. It does not mean that. At the human level, evolution becomes psycho-spiritual. How much of awareness has come into manifestation? How much has intelligence grown and learned to reflect upon itself? This is what augments human evolution. So, our deep attachment to Darwin and the theory of evolution See, all this shakes, and that is why they don't want to have anything to do with religion, the scientific community. The superstructure, the basic premises and the superstructures which we have built stand on shaky ground. If you start thinking like this, so best is well ignore this aspect and then you enjoy whatever of life you can, which means only the five senses are available to you for your experience of life, and make the most out of it. So this is what is called scientific materialism. Most scientists subscribe to scientific materialism because otherwise, I'm telling you, the superstructures will collapse. And we have done it for 4 centuries. We are built up bit by bit. It's very difficult to see a superstructure collapse, isn't it? Even a simple building collapsing, you can't take it easy, especially if you are the creator, if you are the architect. So how do we allow our scientific superstructures to collapse? Even I cannot do it. I cannot stand it because you see, any truth, even if it is on a material plane, it has needed something for you. It has helped you come to this form of belief, isn't it? You must respect it. So we do not want anything to collapse. All that we want is the acknowledgement that there are other ways of doing science. Vedanta is most scientific in this respect, I would say. Most scientific, because I told you basically it is analyzing the subject. The very heart of the experience is the subject. So if you do this science, the world of objective science opens to you, it will yield its secrets to you. But just this science, Western science, the way it is created, that will not yield the subjective knowledge to you at all. In fact, it blocks that form of knowledge. So the choice is left to us. In fact, the very sorry state of affairs is our own universities don't acknowledge this. Indian philosophy is not encouraged in Indian universities. If you have to build a science on a philosophy, science can only be built on a philosophy, please understand. PhD also means that only today, isn't it? So remember, science is built on philosophy. If you don't have respect for your own philosophy, if you don't understand its significance, its meaning and its depth, and what finally it is yielding, you cannot build a superstructure on it. We have not done it in spite of having yoga and Vedanta here. To pursue knowledge and enter the heart of knowledge, you need alertness and high-level awareness and a will which is not compromised to pleasure. Then that mind creates science, genuinely. It will pursue truth to wherever it leads. So we must build a system like that. The second point where science and religion can meet and have similarities. In consciousness studies, Vedanta is speaking the same language, science is speaking the same language. In fact, some of the questions that science is putting up in consciousness studies today have been put up 4,000 years back in Upanishads like the Kena Upanishad. Many times I have quoted it here. Keneshitam padati preshitam manaha. They are asking about the consciousness behind perception. Quantum physics has come to the fact of the importance of the observer. It has come to that. But because many of the things in mainstream science will get shaken due to this, it has been left alone. That's all. But consciousness studies has picked up the string in a different way altogether. But they also have come to that heart problem. I don't know if you have heard. How many of you understand the heart problem? Tell me once or twice that you have said it here. See, I will put it to you in this way. You must understand this problem to understand why science is not able to proceed towards consciousness. Heart problem means basically this. Suppose I put to you a question. This heart problem started from this question. What does it mean or feel like to be a bat? A bat's experience of batness or its experience of being a bat. You know, a bat has extra sensory vision. It has an echolocation. Now, its experience of being a bat and your experience of what should be a bat's experience, aren't the two different? The two are different. What is it that makes a bat feel its bat experience? Tell me. It is pure consciousness. It is consciousness. Just like this question, what converts a perception into an experience? It is pure consciousness. Isn't it? A perception is becoming an experience due to my consciousness. I am manifesting life parameters due to the presence of consciousness. Everything points out to the presence of consciousness, but we have no signs of consciousness. No signs of the subject. Isn't it a major problem? This is the hard problem. How do I proceed in the study of consciousness? How do I get that first person experience and analyze it? Not that I have to get it, I get it already. I have no means of analyzing it. I have not invented the science.
You can't measure it by a foot scale.
You can't measure it.
You can't measure it by a meter. You can't measure it by any form of.
Yes, you can't measure it. You can't state it. You can't put it under observation. You don't have the terminology for it. Now, whose mistake is this? It's our own mistake. We never gave that importance to the subject. Yes, she has a question.
Isn't psychology study?
No, psychology studies the method of knowing. It doesn't study the knower. Please get this point. Psychology is studying the method by which you know an object. It is not throwing light on the knower. Even positive psychology, which is a development over normal psychology, because most psychology is negative psychology. It is only studying human problems. But even positive psychology has no inkling or iota of knowledge about the knower. Just the instrument of perception they are studying, the mind.
Consciousness is so abstract. So only few who observe experience.
Yes.
How to transfer or inform or educate the other person, in realizing actually. So the whole lifetime is so in.
Yes, the thing is this, how, if you feel the reality of these questions, I think we will all proceed towards the science of consciousness. But if I don't even understand the reality of this question, I put to you 2-3 questions here, you see, they must strike us like a lightning bolt. Then only you can create science. If I take it glibly or it doesn't matter, or it's just a theory, a question cannot be a theory. That is a question which shakes the ground under your feet. If you pursue knowledge like this, you will create the required science. You will create the terminology. If it doesn't exist, you will create the platform for the exchange of these ideas. And we should do it. In the future, we will be expected to do it. Swamiji once said, you see, India will be the guru, the spiritual guru of the world, because we have all the concepts with us. We don't have the proper platform, we don't have the terminologies, we haven't made it into a science. And those who know it usually become mauna after knowing it. This is a very important fact. Every yogi will prefer to remain in that state and not come out and describe it. Description always means dilution, because you are bringing it into the purview of language, into the parameters of language which are limited. Even an ineffable experience you can't describe. You won't want to describe. Can you describe to me the taste of ghee? Can you describe me the nature of love? You cannot describe certain things. This is an ineffable experience. And what to speak of the experience of consciousness? When you encounter pure consciousness, you see, even if it is just a samadhi matra, what is called in Yoga Sutras, just a glimpse, even if you get, it is so tremendous. That's why it is described as seeing 1,000 suns and all that. All such descriptions are given because the experience is so tremendous, it will leave a indelible stamp on your mind. And your mind only wants to research into that. And so, we have not developed a science of it, which is descriptive. Okay, Vedanta is entirely like that. That's why there is repetition, there is no connection, all this is there, because it was just an outpouring recorded by the disciple. The rishi is giving out some truth, some insight he has got, and the disciple has recorded it on his that papyrus. That's all we have. It is possible to create a platform for exchange if you are keen on it. I'm telling you, yogis will not be keen on it. That is why the science has not developed in that manner. Because that is really yato vacho nivartante apravya manasasava. That is the state where speech can never go, not even mind cannot go out to speak of speech. This is what they are saying. So the yogi by himself will not try to create, so they have never tried to create it. But the people on this side who are at a dead end, consciousness studies, cul-de-sac thinking it is doing, they will need to create this bridge to proceed. I will make 2-3 statements. Just see if it sounds true to you. Your experience of a bat, of what it means to be a bat, is different from the bat's experience from what it means to be. Isn't this true? It's different. Now, the experience of the bat in being a bat, nobody can replicate that experience. So, you will never know what it is like to be a bat. Only the bat, if it had the language and the means to let you know, then you would have known what it means like to be a bat. Now, what is it that makes experience unique to a being?
Structure, basic.
It is the structure, but what is it that makes you intuit the nature of that experience and structure? It is your consciousness. You see, the consciousness of being a bat may not have developed in the bat, but the experience of being a bat, it knows. That is why it is enjoying its life. Now, you can intuit that experience only by positing a uniting factor in the two. This is what I am trying to say. That is why research into consciousness will bring things together. Research into science, as we understand it, is pulling things apart. That is why Vivekananda said, unity can come if we research into this. Basically, it's all united. It's a tremendous statement to make. If he was self-realized, otherwise he is only experiencing as his structure is, as his brain has developed and does not develop. So his experience of being a bat is something totally different. You may think, oh, what a wonderful thing. You see, when children see birds flying above, they say, oh, how beautiful to fly like that. You're getting a bird's eye view of everything. The bird's experience is not that. This is what I want you to see. One who touches pure consciousness, for him, you see, that prism, it's very clear how each prism is reflecting light in different ways. So the interpretation of the universe is different. Now a knower of Brahman will perfectly know what it is like to be a man. Other than him, nobody will. We can only do guesswork.
Hope you have enjoyed the lecture. Please subscribe to the channel, share and like the video. Thank you so much for being with us.